Chris, welcome to Future Net Zero. I feel you might be American, sitting in Ireland.
What gave it away?
I have no idea, really. You've got that
Irish
international accent. How is Ireland? How are you settling in?
So number one, I just continue to be amazed at the beauty of this country. When I first came here in May, obviously there wasn't a whole lot open. So I was very excited to explore the Irish pubs and sample some cuisine, and that wasn't available. So I settled on lots of hikes. But I got to go do the Bray to Greystone walk, which was fantastic. Walked the cliffs at Howth. I got to go and walk around the lake at Glendalough, which I'm probably not saying right, but I just continue to be amazed at how gorgeous the scenery is over here.
Your first job in Europe, I know you've been with Schneider a long time. Why did you want to take the role?
So I was actually, when it came up, I wouldn't say I was necessarily looking to come to Europe. I was looking for my next challenge at Schneider Electric. A little bit about me, I'm a 28-year industry veteran. I've been with Schneider about 18 years. So I have found my forever home here at Schneider Electric and very happy to be here. But my entire 28 years has been in one domain of Schneider's offers. So I'm a digital energy guy. So think about intelligent buildings, smart buildings. I've been doing that for 28 years. And when I looked at this role, the opportunity for me was to get in and get bigger exposure to all of Schneider businesses. Take some of my experience in running projects and building service organizations, and really building and designing intelligent, sustainable buildings, and apply that to the rest of Schneider's offer and bring that combined offer to our customers here in Ireland. That's really what got me excited about the role and the job.
What's your view of the state of Ireland right now? Because obviously we've had a lot of tumultuous changes the last few years, the last year and a half. Obviously the pandemic has changed a lot of things, but Ireland was changing before that anyway. There's a lot of kind of digitalization taking place, and yet it is still behind other certain European countries. Where do you see the state of play of the nation right now?
You can say that we're a little bit behind some of the other European countries, but quite honestly, coming from a different perspective and coming from a U.S. perspective, I'm very encouraged about the commitment to sustainability I see in Ireland. And actually, right. my 17-year-old son, actually he just turned 17 last week. We were here about a month, and he commented, as we were discussing about the move and what do they enjoy about the country, he goes, it's very much more sustainable over here. And, everything from recycling to switches on all the outlets, to the commitment to renewables and the conversations that you're hearing on the radio and TV about Ireland's commitment to sustainability. Very different conversations than we're having in the States right now.
Do you think that, the way things are going, there is an element here, we sit in Europe and we think we're not doing it enough. We had the IPCC report, and there was a lot of press here, we're not doing enough, we've got to move faster. There's Extinction Rebellion, they're all over the place in the UK, and they're also, I know, operating in Ireland. There are Irish environmental groups, there's a lot of that talk, whereas perhaps in America, that report didn't get as much coverage, didn't get as much kind of traction. Are you perceiving now, seeing with your own eyes, there is a significant difference in attitudes between European ideas on sustainability and those of the US?
Very much so, very much so. I think, in the US, while sustainability is growing and our commitment to renewables is growing, it's probably not number one priority, where when I come over here and I'm having discussions with our customers, I'm having discussions with other, competitors, with government officials, sustainability is the priority. It is the number one topic on everybody's agenda. So it's definitely a little bit different here.
Let's talk about, obviously net zero. That's what we are all about. And what was your reaction to the IPCC report? Because a lot of people were very frightened, disappointed. You could use all of those kind of terms, saying, what's the point? We're already seeing this. There's definite man-made change. We're seeing this increase. We could be hitting 1.5. We could be doing more than that. It seemed very, very negative. I personally didn't see it that way. What was your take?
Well, I guess me and you would have a lot in common. So my friends always tell me that I'm the unicorn goes guy. I'm the optimist, and when I read that report, I don't see doom and gloom. I see that the fact that we can have an impact, we can make a difference, and that the ability to change is in our hands. And I think that's why I love working at Schneider Electric is we're embracing the sustainability, we're embracing this impact, and we want to have an impact on our environment, on our planet, on our customers, and we can do it. I was talking with a major developer a couple weeks ago, and what makes me optimistic is when we talk about these technologies and more sustainable technologies and green and intelligent buildings, everybody thinks cost and it's expensive. When you break
Absolutely,
down
yeah.
the numbers, it's not a cost problem, right? These technologies pay for themselves when you look at the total life cycle of what it costs to build and operate a building, right? The construction cost to build a new building is 25% of the total life cycle cost. The payback on these technologies is fantastic. The challenge that we have is finding new business models and new financial models. So the developer is telling me, it's great to put this technology in, but we're building this building to flip it. So our incentive is to go in, get the lowest first cost, build the best building we can get for the cheapest cost, and then flip it and recognize our investment. They're not thinking about the long-term operating costs, right? He said the other challenge we have is, and mostly in Europe, tenants cover the energy costs, and the landlords cannot drive more rent to put these technologies in. So they're happy just to go the bare minimum and then pass the cost of the utilities off to their tenants, right? So I think for us as an industry, as government, we really have to look at upsetting the financial models and really start mandating some of these technologies. We do that, again, the cost equation takes care of itself, but it's going to require us to have a little more, I think, influence on what's going into these buildings, first cost.
And I think that's a very relevant point. I mean, look, we're a small business ourselves in rented accommodation. We try and argue with our landlord just to get in some LED lighting, and it's a nightmare. And that is the big thing. You look at the pandemic has probably put it into more focus. All the office buildings that have been sitting empty for months on end, the energy on those, the bills that are required. You've hit the nail on the head. For everyone who's involved in that, it's kind of passed the buck down. Well, I'm not going to build it with all that because I'm not going to see the return. I'm going to rent it out in the short term. I'm not going to put the investment in. So you said that, we need to do more. As a company, do you see that something that you will try and take on? And what would you want to see from governments on that front? Because I think a lot of people would agree with you that if we get it right at the beginning, then the legacy is better for everyone, whoever takes over those buildings in the future.
Yeah, well, we're having this thing COP26 coming up next month in the UK. What I personally would like to see coming out of this is more commitments from government to start mandating some of these technologies.
Right.
Not just for new builds, not just for greenfield, but for also the brownfield, right? So the office park that I'm sitting in right now has no EV charging. Right? That's got to change. And I'm happy to say that we're starting to see some mandates coming from the Irish government around EV. And if you have a parking lot that's got more than 20 spaces, you're going to have EV installed. I think that's what it's going to take to start changing the conversation. Again, once you're forced to do it, it's the cost benefit, the payback's there, but it's forcing the people to make the upfront investments, to change their financial models, to change how their leasing arrangements are set up, so we can get these technologies installed again, not just in our greenfield, but also in our brownfield.
I know that Schneider has been, rated very well. You've topped the ratings for being sustainable. Would you take on some of these things? These conversations you're having right now, Chris, with potential customers. Do you have the flexibility and the financial muscle to say, do you know what? We'll do this for you. We'll fund a model, because this is something that is coming more and more to the fore. Will the OEM, the original, or the people that put in the original equipment, will they take the burden to say, actually, we'll do it? And I know your CEO has talked about end-of-life products and the fact that you want to do that as an organisation, to say, if you buy a bit of Schneider kit, we'll take care of its end of life as well, because we want to have that circularity. So is that something you think you as an organisation can push, that Schneider would say, hang on, I get your reticence, but let us share some of the burden? So
you know that Schneider's been doing that for decades. So we have a division of our company called Energy and Sustainability Services, and we've been doing a model called performance contracting for years and years. And in the States, we were involved in a lot of that with local and state governments, school districts, state office-owned buildings where these buildings had old technology. They needed new skins, they needed new HVAC equipment, they needed new lights, but they had no funding.
Yeah.
Schneider has the ability then to go to a bank, say, look, we know how to design these systems. Here's our calculations. Here's what the payback's going to look like. We arrange the funding. The state or local entity has no upfront cost. We fund the construction. We build it. We service it for the next 20 years, and it's paid for out of the energy reductions. So those business models exist today. You're probably going to hear a lot in the future about everything as a service, right? So
yes,
we've launched offers in the U.S., and I know we have plans over here in Europe as well to offer microgrid as a service. So we'll come in. You have a need, whether you're a pharmaceutical, whether you're a data center, whether you're a government entity. We did this with. I'm originally from the state of Maryland in the United States. In Montgomery County, we did a huge microgrid as a service project with them, taking their jails and their municipal office buildings off the grid, building a microgrid, building renewables and battery storage in. And now they've come back to us and said, help us electrify our fleet and help us do this with our buses. So those business models exist. And we actually have partners that are lining up to come with us with capital saying, hey, we're all in. We have the capital. We'll go with you. We'll bring the money, you bring the expertise, and let's go make this happen for our customers.
For the businesses, the Irish business particularly who will be dealing with you, but is this an option then that they could have that conversation with you and say, actually, we haven't got the funds on our balance, on our books, can you help us? And you've got a way of starting this conversation and actually offering a solution. 100%.
And one opportunity I really see for Ireland is that microgrid opportunity.
Right.
You can't turn on the radio, turn on the TV without hearing something about data centers in Ireland.
Yeah,
and the grid capacity, right?
Yeah.
We were talking with a multinational data center company that's looking to come to Ireland, and part of their permit is that you got to bring 5 megawatts of generation. So they're saying, what can you do to help us build a microgrid as part of our data center? And I think that's really going to be more and more the expectation versus the exception. Right. So if you want to build a data center, what kind of generating capacity can you bring to the equation? What kind of storage? Because it's not just up to the government to go and build out the grid and continue to build for our needs. I think us as industry need to be a part of the solution as well.
You talk there about data centers, and I think that's one of the areas that I think a lot of people will be looking at. If we want to achieve net zero, everyone looks at the obvious things, right? So obviously electrifying homes, transport, heat. But one of the big things that we never seem to, the whole pandemic has put in focus. Oh, it's a lot easier to work from home, but people don't think that right now you and I are on this Zoom call. That's energy. That's a data center. That's software. That's machines burning power. The energy consumption of IT is projected to be exponentially growing over the next 25, 30, and definitely by the year 2050. Is it an area you think still there is so much scope for us to try and reduce that? Because it's one of the things that the big majors, the Googles, Amazons, they're all talking about it. Apple, they all send me press releases all the time about what they're doing it, but we don't realize actually still how big a challenge that is.
I do think there's opportunity, and we have lots of technologies where we're working with some of those clients that you named to help them reduce their consumption at a data center level. But beyond data centers, let's talk about our buildings. Commercial buildings are responsible for about 40% of the total greenhouse gases. I think that's the untapped opportunity that people don't talk enough about. And, we just went through a year and a half where people left commercial buildings. And what happened to our energy uses in those commercial buildings, right? They really dropped off. But at the same time, it really identified the inefficiencies in our commercial buildings, because now operators couldn't be in there 24/7. And they didn't know when their HVAC equipment was running when it shouldn't have been. Lights, how many times have you been in a city at night and you're looking up the skyscraper and there's just floors and floors and floors of lights with nobody operating, right? To me, that's the bigger opportunity. And when we talk about buildings of the future, we're talking about using technology. And again, this isn't technology that we have to go develop and do a lot of R&D on and research. This is technology that exists today to make our buildings smarter, make them more adaptive, right? Why should I be heating and cooling and lighting a room that nobody's occupying?
Yeah.
Why should I be, if I have, 100 people coming into my building on a daily basis, why should I have spaces and floors for 300? Right. So I think it's us using technology to make our buildings smarter, to work better with how we're working. At Schneider, we've embraced this new way of working, and we're embracing a flexible work for our workforce. Our real estate needs are going to change. Our buildings
Yeah.
have to change for our new footprint, for the new ways of working. And I think, that's an even bigger opportunity more so than the data centers.
Before we go, you mentioned earlier COP. What would you hope to see from COP? I mean, there's been talk about whether there be a carbon tax. My personal view is I think we need a global carbon tax to put it into focus. The whole point of net zero has a target is it's made businesses get focused, right? And I think there should be a financial lever. But in general, some valid criticism is that this is just another talking shop of kind of quangos and government bodies, and they'll, ponce about and say a few good things, but nothing will really happen. What do you hope? You're a big organization, you're probably going to be there anyway, I'm sure, Schneider, in some form, but what do you hope will come from COP directly to help the businesses, your customers, the society that we live in?
So again, for me personally, what I'm hoping to see is for the governments to come out with more of a prescriptive approach to legislating some of these technologies. Again,
Right.
it doesn't make sense to build a building without these technologies, right? And I think it's, we've tried the carrot approach. I'd like to see a little more of a stick approach from some of these governments saying, look, we've given you the opportunities. If you're going to build a building now, it's got to have EV. If you're going to build a building now, we need to see some kind of renewable strategy. We need to have our green certifications. That's what I'd like to see coming out of COP.
And the last bit is, retrofit. All of this stuff, most of the housing stock, definitely in Europe. I know in America it's a lot younger, but you've seen in Ireland, here in the UK, how old things are. Our office buildings, how old they are. Is there an element where you feel that actually there is scope for people like us, small business, there is scope for, old warehouses to get involved in this net zero transition? Because there is that other thing, there's a divide. People think it's for the big boys, it's for the big companies, for the people who've got the money to expand and, as you say, come and talk to you guys and say, hey, give me a balance book that will work it. But we need to take everyone with us on this journey, Chris, don't we, for it to happen?
100%. And, I think I was listening to another panelist from one of your recorded sessions talking about the amount of houses in Ireland that are fueled by kerosene, right? And the opportunity for green fuel. I mean, that's a prime example. There's all kinds of brownfield retrofits that we can do to not just our commercial buildings, but our residential buildings. That, again, when you look at the long-term payback, makes sense. So how do we provide financial incentives, rebates, fuel credits, so you can take that person that probably this isn't the forefront of what they're thinking about, right? They're not really thinking about sustainability.
Absolutely. No.
But how do we make this attractive to them and say, by the way, you're also getting upgraded infrastructure. You're going to get a rebate on your taxes, or you're going to get a rebate on your credit or on your energy credit to make this feasible for you. I mean, it's simple things. Insulation. It was amazing. 10 years ago, I went through my house back, but this was before I moved to Texas when I was in Maryland, and I replaced every light bulb with an LED, and my utility bill dropped $50 the next month. $50.
Yeah, amazing, isn't it? Yeah, exactly.
$50. Yeah. And all I did was change the light bulbs, right? But then I started, and then the utility had just put a smart meter in, so I started looking and comparing my usage month to month, and then it almost started a competition with myself. What can I do to do even more? So,
you're telling the teenagers, turn the bloody lights off. That's basically it.
Turning into my father, right?
Exactly. We all turn into our fathers. No, that's great. And my final question is, you say you got your young children. What do you think that they can do? Because this is the other thing that's happened with Greta Thunberg, with all the stuff that's going on. I think businesses now know that the consumer of the future is not like the consumer of the past, and they want something. What will your children want? What will they want you to do as their dad, as a legacy?
I tell you what, I don't think it's just the consumer of the future. It's the employees of the future. We have, when I'm talking to recent grads, we call them university recruits in the United States, about why you want to
Hmm.
join Schneider Electric. So
Yep.
many want to come to our company because of the sustainability and having an impact on the environment, right? They just don't want a job. They want a career that's going to have an impact. So I think that's what my boys are looking for me. They're going to look at, Dad, what did you do in your generation to make it better for us? Honestly, Summit, one thing that's really re-energized me is coming here to this country and just, with my own eyes, seeing the beauty here on doing those cliff walks and seeing just how gorgeous this island is. And I really feel a responsibility as the current generation to make sure that we preserve that and that we leave behind a legacy of sustainability for the next generation and for the generation after that and the generation after that.